Okay, guys, we are here with the our North Carolina Coach book, and we are looking at inherited traits. So we are on page 96 if you would like to follow along. So I'm going to start reading here. Suppose the cardinals visit your yard every day at the same time. They come when you put food in your bird feeder. These birds have red feathers and eat seeds. Having red feathers and eating seeds are qualities that cardinals are born with, but knowing when to show up at your bird feeder is something that they have learned. Inherited traits. Every living thing has traits that make it unique. A trait is a quality or characteristic of a living thing. Some traits are physical features. The color of an animal's fur is a physical trait. So is the shape of a leaf. Other traits are behaviors. A behavior is the way in which a living thing acts or responds to its surroundings. Building a nest is an animal behavior. Growing toward sunlight is a plant behavior. Organisms get their traits in different ways. Some traits are passed from parents to offspring or young. Before the offspring are born, a characteristic that a living thing gets from its parents is called an inherited trait. Both physical features and behaviors can be inherited. Think about a population of the northern cardinals that live in the forest in North Carolina. A population is a group of organisms of the same kind that live in the same area at the same time. Members of the population of cardinals share many physical features and behaviors they inherited from their parents. They inherited the physical traits of having red feathers and 2 legs. They also inherited the behavior of singing. Puppies inherit the physical traits of having fur and 4 legs. They also inherit the behavior of barking. You inherited the color of your eyes and hair and the shape of your nose and having 2 arms. You also inherited the ability to laugh and cry. Laughing and crying are human behaviors. Let's see what we can figure out so far. A trait is a blank or a characteristic of a living thing. So a trait is a quality or characteristic of a living thing, such as physical features or behaviors that make it blank. So physical features that make it what? So such as physical features or the behaviors that make it So to this question right here, physical features or behaviors that make it, we're going to put respond. Some traits called blank traits are passed from parents to offspring. So what kind of traits are passed from parents to their offsprings? They are called inherited. Are passed from parents to offspring before they are born. Blank features and behaviors can be inherited. So what features? Both what? What besides their behaviors? Right here. Both physical and behaviors can be inherited. A blank group of organisms of the same kind live in the same area at the same time. Shares many physical features and blank. See it? It's in bold. Population. Or group of organisms that live in the same area at the same time. Shares many physical features and blank inherited from their parents. Same area at the same time. Members of the population have many physical features and behaviors they inherited from their parents. They inherit the physical traits of having red feathers and 2 legs. They also inherited the behavior of singing. So when you look at this, it says share many physical features and Besides physical features, they also inherit their behaviors. They inherit it from the parents. Feathers, fur, singing, barking, eye color, hair color, laughing and crying are all examples of inherited traits. Inherited characteristics of plants include roots growing down towards the blank while stems and leaves grow upward. So we're going to look over here because these have talked about animals over here. So we're going to be on page 97. Look at the behavior shown in the drawing. The girl is rolling her tongue. If you can roll your tongue, you are most likely born with that trait. Scientists think that tongue rolling is mainly an inherited trait. Like animals, plants inherit the ways of responding to their surroundings. Roots grow down towards water. Stems grow up towards the sun. Leaves, too, grow towards light. Vines may climb up a fence or a tree trunk. The leaves of some plants close up if something touches them. These traits are passed from parents to offspring. As a result, offspring resemble their parents in many ways. Apple trees produce more apple trees, not pear trees or other kinds of plants. The offspring of humans are always human babies. When you grow up, you are more likely to look like your parents than your friends' parents. Most plants and animals get their traits from two parents. As a result, an offspring's traits are not exactly like those of either parent. You may look more like your mother or more like your father, but you will not grow up to look exactly like either one. The birds in a population of the northern cardinals will be very much like each other, but they will not be exactly alike. One bird might have a slightly thicker beak than the others. Another bird might have feet that are a little too larger than the average. Okay? So when we look at this here, inherited characteristics of plants include roots growing down towards what? The roots grow down towards towards what? Water. While stems and leaves grow up towards the sun. Most plants and animals get their traits from blank parents. Most animals get their traits from their two parents. So the blank will be similar to both parents and will not have exactly the same traits as either parents. So the blank will be similar. What's going to be similar? Offspring will be similar, but will not have the exactly the same traits as either parent. Blank are traits and characteristics developed during a lifetime of an organism. So we are going to look at acquired traits now. Not all traits are inherited. A acquired trait is a characteristic that a living thing gets during its lifetime. To acquire something means to get it. A scar is a physical trait that is acquired. An animal is not born with a scar. A scar forms after an animal is injured. A tree may become scarred after being hit by lightning. Many acquired traits are learned behaviors. A learned behavior is a skill that an animal develops after it is born. Humans and other animals learn from adults and form experience. A bird may teach its babies to fly. A young horse may learn to stay away from an electric fence after getting a shock from it. Young chimpanzees learn from the adults to use sticks as tools for getting food. Humans learn many skills from parents and from other people in their community. You were born knowing how to use your voice and eyes. These are inherited traits. But you were not born knowing how to speak a language or read a book. You learned to speak by listening to your parents and other people around you. Some taught you how to read. These are learned behaviors. You were born with 2 arms and 2 legs. These are also inherited traits. But knowing how to use them to ride a bicycle is a learned behavior. Learned behaviors and other acquired traits are not passed on from their parents to their offspring. If you know how to ride a bike, your children will not be born knowing how to do this. They will have to learn, just as you did. If you have a scar from a cut, your children will not be born with the scar. A table below shows some examples of inherited traits and acquired traits. You may think of other examples that go into the table. So let's look at this right here. Blank traits are characters that developed during a lifetime of organisms. So what kind of trait is learned? Is an acquired trait? Are learned characteristics that develop during a lifetime of an organism. Scars are an example of blank traits that are acquired. So scars are, what kind of trait is it? It's a physical trait that are acquired. Birds learn the behavior of flying, and humans blank to speak. So what do humans do? What do we do to speak? We learn to speak, ride a bike, and read books. Learned behaviors and other acquired traits are not passed on from blank to their offspring. So these traits are not passed on from who? The parents. Okay, fill in the chart below with examples of inherited and acquired traits. So I'm going to give you a moment. I'm going to split mine in half here. Okay, and I'm going to give you a moment. I'm going to leave it right here so that you can copy. And then we will pick up with our questions. So if you'll pause the video here. You should have taken time to write down some of your inherited traits. Now, I just kind of summarized some of mine. I just wrote down like the key things. We inherit our eyes or our long fingers or the red flowers from a plant or curly fur. And I kind of just wrote down, I summarized it and shortened them so that it didn't take me as long. If you had written them all out, that was perfectly fine. Which of these is a learned behavior for a dog? A, walking on 4 legs, rolling over on command, barking, or panting. A learned behavior. Think about your dogs or your animals. Number 2, which of these is an inherited trait for humans? Learning how to read, speaking English, being able to play the violin, or having 2 arms, which is an inherited trait. Number 3, which sentence is true? Acquired traits are passed from parents to offspring. Inherited traits are passed from parents to offspring. Behaviors are never inherited, or behaviors are always inherited. Think about what it's asking and look at your question again. Break it down. And number 4, which of these traits can a tree not pass off to its offspring? A shape of its leaves. B, roots that grow towards the water. C, a trunk scarred by lightning. Or D, a kind of seed it forms. So which one is not passed on by their offspring?